Hey guys, Nick here, and today we're getting into part 41, the semi-final part of What If Dale Survived the Remake. Yes, we are finally approaching the final two parts of this story, which has gone on longer than any piece of work of mine ever, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it beyond a shadow of a doubt, because definitely, I have. And we got into the saviors ultimately being dealt with Sherry leading them, and Dale's unfortunate demise finally in the last episode. Now we see the entrance into the Whisperers, spoiler, and what happens after. Now, Dale has just passed, living not as long as I've made him sometimes. I made him live long in What If Madison's Family Joined Rick up until season 10 or 11's canon storyline. But here, I think that he went out, and I think you can all agree on this, in the most awesome way that we could honor his character. Dr. Carson, after Dale is unmoving and responding, trying to hold back immense tears himself after Dale's speech, sadly has to tell everybody in the group that he's sorry to all of them, but Dale's gone. Really was nothing that they could do. His brainwave activity in his eye, he just cost his own life force, and now he's gone. And the entire group is bawling tears. This would be a very sad moment. Glenn especially. How long Dale had been around him, how much he meant to him. He was like a father to Glenn. And living longer, in any one of my stories, Glenn would care for him more highly. But this one, him being featured the most, Glenn would be utterly destroyed by this. They had lived through everything, even the governor together. And for him to go out like this, it's just too much for him. It really breaks Glenn's heart. And as for Rick, he doesn't know what to think. He doesn't know whether to be sad, angry, confused. He doesn't know. Rick is so full of emotion. Because it was because of Dale and everyone seemingly being dead that Rick devolved into a monster. And his son was killed because of him in that moment. And to see Dale live through getting almost killed by a walker in the original and here, because remember, I don't know, you guys obviously remember this, but he was almost killed by that walker. And here, we're putting in the storyline, if you guys haven't paid attention, that they saved him from the walker instead of it never happening. I know I didn't really disclose that maybe enough, but we're doing that. And to think, at first, he was almost killed by a single walker, but they were able to save his life. And then Shane, how he and Dale had to team up against Shane and stop him. He could have killed both of them. And then for him to live onwards, he meant so much. And then came the tipping point, part 13, where Dale, Glenn, Maggie, Tyrese, Sasha, Carol, Beth, all of them were thought to be dead. And Herschel, Oscar, and Axel, and all of them, they did die. And many others. And Carol ended up dying later too. But Dale, most of all, probably, and did, because it's in his name of the series, he meant the most living. And the person he became, it was one thing for him to get a shotgun arm. It was another thing for him to have to wire it into his own life force, but to later find out about the bullet and that it had fragged his mind. They should have caught on sooner that he wasn't just lucky that didn't kill him. It was prolonged damage done to his brain that they didn't even know about. And until it was too late. And Maggie knows that Rick, Glenn, and everybody else, she knows more than anyone else also that they cannot devolve into heartless people. Because that's not what Dale would want. Because of Dale's influence, Maggie especially wouldn't be dark, because Glenn's still around, and yeah, she's not a dark person, especially like the rest of them. She says that they need to honor Dale and do what he said and never devolve into monsters like they did. And Eastman, he's going to bring this onwards too. They need to honor not only Dale, but Tyrese, the council, and the formation of what they were trying to build. And Jesus said, also in order to do that, since Sherry is now leading the Saviors and they're on their own, not having any contact with any of the groups, and like all the other groups are free from control, Jesus needs to talk to all the other communities, meaning the kingdom and Alexandria mainly, like those specific two, and they need to get them up to speed and tell them that the threat is over. So they do go to the kingdom, and they meet Ezekiel, and they talk to them about that. As for Tara and Heath, that story would go the same. Heath would be kidnapped by Jadis in the CRM. We never know what happened to him. Even now, we still don't. And when Tara returns, she unfortunately has to learn the news about Denise's killing at the hands of little Timmy and his brigade, who were killed, so she's not going to have that little revenge plot. And she would hear about Tyrese and Dale, and that Negan was killed, and Sherry's the leader of the Saviors, and so on. Tara would definitely be broken about this too, for how much Dale meant, like, seeing him around and everything like that, being around him for not as long as everyone else by a long shot, but still knowing plenty about him and, like, what he did for the course of the group. And Tyrese would mean a lot too. So, and losing Denise, obviously, even though she's not going to have a revenge plot, it's not like she's going to forget that. I wouldn't expect her to. As for Jadis and her people, they would pretty much live on their own. Nobody would know about them. And I know that I've had them miraculously meet before, and they were already in cahoots with Negan, but that's a side mistake that I've often gotten wrong. So they're pretty much just going to be on their own. No one's ever going to know about them. No one's ever going to talk to them. They're pretty much just going to be on their own. And they're not going to go with the CRM because they'd have no need to. Jadis has her people, so she's still going to be that trash person that she was. So, yeah. As for Jessie, she, like I said before, has replaced Carl's eye loss thing, except Carl did lose his eye whenever he was accidentally killed by Rick, along being impaled, but that's beside the point. She'd remain with the eye patch, with the one eye, and the baby that they were expecting from Jessie would finally, over this time, be born. And the baby would be a boy. And I think, for all intents and purposes, that the baby should be named Carl Jr. to honor Carl, who Rick accidentally killed once again, and to honor Rick's family legacy, and to start a new legacy with Rick and Jesse and Sam. Because Jesse and Sam are the only Andersons left, and Rick and Judith are the only Grimes left, so they ultimately want to forge it together. It's almost like Rick and Michonne's relationship, except way more twisted in this story. You guys get what I'm saying? So, yeah. As for Glenn and Maggie's baby, Glenn would actually be around to be the dad, like I've had in many, many stories. But, one hand, you guys might think, oh, it's just going to be Herschel, and it's going to be like this, that, and the other thing, and we're not really going to get anything different there, right? Wrong! Because I think that even though Maggie would think about naming the baby Herschel, her and Glenn would come to an agreement as to what the baby's name really should be. And keeping up with Carl Jr., honoring Carl, who was lost, I think that they would name the baby Dale Jr. to honor Dale. So, ultimately, it would still be the same person, but Herschel Jr., that name wouldn't exist. Instead, his name would just be Dale Jr. I know I'm throwing, like, characters' names out there and then putting Jr. there, but you gotta think about how Carl and Dale went in the story, and think about how much they meant. Dale probably way more. Actually, yeah, Dale way more, because Carl was lost, like, way freaking sooner than his original counterpart. So, yeah. It would just be to honor them, which I don't know why I have to explain. It's just for those who don't get the reason. As for Daryl and Beth, they're gonna be still together like how they have been since Beth recovered for her temporary amnesia, and they're gonna have a kid too. But it's not gonna be Katniss and that other stupid crap that I've done with them before, because let's be honest, I could have done way better with that and looked into much different research and done more to say what their kid would, could, or should have been called, or whether it'd be a boy or girl or not. So, we're gonna get that here, and actually get a good name that would be fit for Daryl and Beth if they had a child. And for all intents and purposes, child is going to be a girl, but instead, her name is going to be Cassandra. Because honestly, I feel that it's a good name between Daryl and Beth. It's not a mix of really both of them. It's just a name that I think that Daryl and Beth would both agree on. And let's be honest, we're not going to name them like Merlina or Merly or something like Merle, because that would just be freaking silly. Anyways, Eastman would also still be around and playing much of the part that he did in What If Eastman Survived, trying to honor Dale. So honestly, since he's still around, you could consider this up for the last few parts here, today's and the next ones, What If Eastman Survived. But way different, because Eastman's not the main plot here, Dale was. Eastman's just taking up the mantle with everybody else to honor him, if that makes sense. Now, Tara and Olivia, I feel, would actually get into a relationship here, because they wouldn't disclose Oceanside because they'd have no need to. So I honestly think that's the best decision. And then, I think I'm going to throw Ezekiel and Sasha together. Now, why am I doing this? Well, Carol is dead. There's no Abraham. And Glenn is still with Maggie, so Glenn and Sasha can't be together like my What If Negan Killed Maggie. So, I think that the communities being united and them seeing each other a lot more and uniting after the Saviors and everything, and Dale, I think that Ezekiel and Sasha would honestly fit in a way. You guys can put that up any way you want to, but to me, especially when I was writing this, it definitely seemed like this was a good relationship idea. I still think it is. Aaron and Eric would still be together, and Deanna would be the only Monroe left, which is rare. I've really never done that before. Usually I've made like Spencer be the only one left or something like that, but never Deanna, I feel. But anyways, she wouldn't mind this. She would miss the frick out of her husband and her kids, obviously. But seeing everyone honor Dale and what it meant to them, and everyone changing their ways, and Rick and everybody getting back to like not being dark anymore and devolving, and having kids honoring people that they lost, it would really, really make her happy, and glad that she put the leadership trust into Rick and everybody else. She's still an advisor, because she was the first one who made this place, you know what I'm saying? But she's obviously not the leader. If that, you know, you guys already knew that. As for Sadiq, he would still be rescued by the likes of Aaron and Eric, but sadly, Eric would get bitten here and he would die. And now this would be around like season 8's canon storyline, so honestly, I'm not really crutching Eric or making him live longer. I'm honestly killing him around the same exact time, to be honest. So it's not like I'm doing worse or better by his character. I've made him live like long points before. Sometimes I think to the end, if I'm being completely honest. Anyway, we would then get that whole confusing Gabriel, Sadiq, and Rosita relationship thing, which, yeah, I bet a lot of us are still to this day confused about that little thing. Anyway, yeah, we would eventually get that, but Sadiq would honestly have to obviously get, like, with Rosita, you know? So, yeah. And as for more, Sam would actually get one in the form of Mika, which I've really never paired Sam with anybody before, but Mika I have, I think. I think I have. And you would think that Megan, since they were all friends, the three of them, would be hurt by this, or something like that, because they were all friends, and it's weird, Sam being friends with two girls, because I had Glenn get with Rosita and Sasha in my first ever What If Negan Killed Maggie. You'd think that I'd do something stupid like that here, or crazy. But I think that Megan honestly wouldn't mind, and would treat Sam more of a friend before, like, Sam and Mika would get into a relationship. So honestly, when the time would come for Sam and Mika to get into a relationship, I don't think that Megan would mind here, and would instead still be their friend and be happy for them overall. So honestly, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And moving on, we get into more people, more communities, and more alignments showing how much Dale meant for him. Just like when Eastman died, they are honoring Dale fully and completely. Because I cannot stress enough how much more Dale meant in this story probably than any one of my stories. Because I wanted to make Dale mean something more than he did in my original, and mean something overall. Like more than Eastman, and because he was a very vital character, which I don't think enough people recognize, you know? But yeah, they would continue to honor him and build the communities up and be themselves and keep their humanity just like he wanted. Meanwhile, Sherry would still continue to lead the Saviors into leaving the communities alone and building up the prosperity and growth of the sanctuary. And it would work. It would be hard listening to Sherry at first, because at first, Sherry, Tina, and Dwight, they were all misfits that were just brought in by Negan's hand. But overall, I think that they would literally have no choice, because Sherry herself kind of did kill Negan, and this is the best way to go. As for Richard, Ezekiel would have to, because I know it's weird me mentioning Richard, he would have to explain to everybody, and the communities would have to explain to everybody, that since Sherry's leading, Negan's dead, Sherry literally promised and told them that it was all about Negan. So now that it's not, she can lead the sanctuary into leaving all the communities alone. So Richard's not going to want to get all stupid and make the plan and everything and be a martyr. So the leaving alone of the Saviors works out on all ends, not just the Savior side. You know what I'm saying? Gabriel would also keep his sight, because he would never be exposed to the Walker blood and the guts, which I've done in a constant multitude of stories. And yeah, it's just a small little plot thing, because it really didn't hinder Gabriel too much. It did a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But not too much. Anyways, then we talk about the leadership of Hilltop. Jesus and Gregory would have the voting quarrel. And even though Jesus was Gregory's right hand at the time, and Gregory had understood more about Dale and everything else, I feel that over time he would just get more overconfident, rude, pompous, arrogant, and every other word that you could use to describe Gregory. And Jesus would ultimately be chosen as a candidate to lead. And if Gregory did try to kill him, Jesus would utterly, completely destroy him with his combat abilities and put him in his place, not kill him. As for the bridge, even though the saviors aren't around, since all the communities didn't lose like almost no one, and we have way more survivors, as I've done in a multitude of stories, the bridge is successfully built. So, yeah, no one leaving here or blowing up the bridge. So, yeah. And going onwards from that point, Glenn, Maggie, and Dale Jr., not Herschel Jr., would go with Georgie to start the community because, forgot to mention, she would still be present here in the story. She would just show up in the interval between everything happening and the kids and, like, building up the communities and everything. But yeah, Glenn, Maggie, and Dale Jr. would all go with Georgie to start the communities and get into that eventual storyline, but you will not see them again until the next part in the finale, which you can't miss it. As for Yumiko's group, they would be rescued following a 6-year time skip, because, yeah, we're already getting into that like I do in a bunch of stories, but yeah, there isn't too much else to talk about besides this. Judith would most likely be the one to rescue them. If not, maybe like a few side people, probably a bunch of side people, but I'm just throwing Judith's original meeting of them in the situation because it's a good moment for her to finally like show her character like she did in the original story, you know, after Rick left. Yeah. Then we're actually going to get something that stays the same. Rosita and Eugene know Spencer, which means that the both of them have to hide, and that means that Rosita is going to be all on her own. Eugene's going to be hidden off in the barn, and Rosita's going to be all off on her own to try and get back to Alexandria. And the entrance into the Whisperers is beginning to unfold. And it's been a minute, or probably the first time, since I've ever made this part of the story stay the same, I think. So, yeah. As for people going, Jesus would be number one, and Tara, I feel, in his stead, would take up the lead for Hilltop and make sure that Gregory doesn't try to usurp control. Because, let's be honest, even though Jesus can for sure put him in his place, it's not like anybody trusts him to make good decisions. Aaron would be the next one, obviously, and Daryl and Beth would go alongside, Yumiko and Magna, and last but not least, Rick. And with that, we get into them finding Eugene at the barn for once, and him talking about the walkers talking and most likely advancing, and what happened with him, Rosita, etc. And this is where the entrance to the Whisperers officially starts. With that, we get into the group heading to the cemetery, a much different group, mind you, obviously, and Jesus beginning to fight off the walkers one by one to try and help them get away, and so on. Now, one would think, because I kept that little side part the same, that Jesus would fight the walkers here and instantly get swarmed, killed, and yeah, that's literally how his death would go, the exact same way. But not so. Before he's killed by the one Whisperer, Eastman and Morgan pop out of seemingly nowhere, the cavalry arriving to help and kill the Whisperers around Jesus. And Morgan says they had to come and help. Morgan is tired of losing people, as is Eastman and everybody, especially after Dale and Tyrese and Owen and remembering everybody. For this long, they haven't survived this long to keep losing people so cruelly. And whatever these walkers or people or whatever they are, Morgan doesn't care. They're going to show him that they mean business and that nobody else is going to die. Little does he know, that is far from the truth. But I ain't going to spoil anything. but he says that they're here to help and they ain't ever going away. And with that, after they kill the 2 Whisperers by Jesus, or at least the one, more begin to surround them. But Morgan shows his true, unbridled character development by wielding the axe that I talked about that he would forge. Not Emil's axe, but his own. That would be crafted with a stick and an axe. But it wouldn't be Emil's. It's just to tell you guys the main difference. And Michonne's sword. So, now he has even cooler freaking weapon add-ons with the axe included instead of the stick and the sword. You know what I'm saying? After he literally blows through all them, they meet the Whisperers on the bridge and unmask Lydia. Eastman would then say, honestly, even though these people did try to kill them and they're hiding with the walkers, they still should bring at least one of them in, mainly this girl, so that way they could find out what they are, why they're doing this with the walkers and everything and the masks, and possibly try to stop any incoming conflict before it happens. Because let's face it, people blending in with walkers, that's going to become a problem if they don't at least capture one of them and try and find out what's going on. He would explain more, but Rick pretty much gets the rest of what he's talking about, and sparing people and trying to, you know, keep humanity and everything, but they ain't going to talk too much more right now, because who knows how many more walkers or people are out there, you know? So they just capture Lydia and hurry back to Hilltop, not losing anybody, which, yeah, I've done before. And once Lydia is captured and held in the cell at Hilltop, Eastman says that, yeah, even though the main reason of capturing her is to make sure that they have some leverage against whatever kind of group this is, but it's also to keep the memory of Dale still burning bright. Because, like his What If Eastman Survived counterpart, he would not want to kill this girl who's literally pleading for her life. Because people begging for their lives that are actually sincere, even if they're hiding among dead frickin' walkers and everything, is not right. And if this girl is being dragged along, like, unwillingly with these people, then it's definitely even more wrong to put her down here. And Dale would most definitely agree with this. And yeah, I know I'm mentioning Dale like a lot, but hey, he is the main part of the story. And you gotta think that Eastman would bring up Tyrese and Dale, and they would definitely have way more than enough reasons to keep Lydia alive here. For not only their sake, but making sure they have leverage in case, like, the Whisperers, who we obviously know, come and find them. Now, Lydia would not know what to think of all this and all this, like, preaching and good talk, but they ain't doing anything to her, like killing her or torturing her or anything. They're just trying to get information, and they're not going to be rough about it because nobody died. So, you know, it's not going to be as big because no Jesus died and everything like that, you know? But they almost did try to kill, so they are harsh on her, but they're not going to be, like, rough like Daryl was. You know what I'm saying? So overall, over time, Lydia begins to feel, you know, better about staying here and not so, like, misunderstood about the whole thing. And eventually, she does come across Benjamin. Because, once again, Benjamin being alive means that Henry wouldn't act like a fool, and he would actually meet Lydia instead of Henry. And with that, we officially get into Alpha and the Whisperers appearing at Hilltop. And this is where we end the semi-final episode of Dale's story here. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the semi-final part, because trust me, the finale, you cannot miss it. It's going to be big. I'm talking part 13, part 37, and tomorrow, or whenever's finale, because it's obviously not going to be tomorrow, but you cannot miss the finale. I'm telling you guys right now. If there's any part of the story that you cannot miss, it's that. As a matter of fact, I would check out almost the whole story if you haven't, or any major part of the story, like, before you watch the finale, because trust me when I tell you guys, you cannot miss what happens in the finale. Like, it's literally going to blow your minds. I'd explain more, but I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow or whenever in the freaking finale. Hope you guys enjoyed the semifinal episode, and I'll see you guys later.